Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good Thursday evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with you on this 8th of June. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information. You can do that easily by calling us at 1-800-472-0391. That'll get you the automated forecast for your area. Listen to the numbers, punch them in, write them down as you go, and then you can punch them in just a little bit faster the next time around. That's the Alaska Weather Information Line. You can find us online anytime you want at weather.gov/Alaska. That gets you started at the big view, the 30,000-foot view, as you like to say. And once you click on that map, you'll get taken to your local weather forecast office, whether that's Fairbanks, Juneau, or Anchorage. You can also find links to the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit or the National Tsunami Warning Center that's in Palmer, Alaska. If you have questions about anything you found, or if you want to know where you can find the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center's information, if you're having trouble finding that, easy to do. Just email me, david.snider@noaa.gov. Be happy to help steer you in the correct direction or answer any questions or concerns that you may have. Our weather concerns tonight are pretty much focused on where the hot, dry, or windy weather, or all three of those combined, where that is going to be. And for tonight, for the central interior, for the middle Tanana Valley, and the Deltana and Tanana Flats region, red flag warnings are in effect now. For most folks, that is not an imminent sign of danger. But if you're a firefighter or have fire concerns in your community, that should be the top of the list for you. This is the type of weather that we're watching for rapid fire growth. So be extra careful with fire if you're out in the backcountry there a little bit and you're watching the show and you're saying, yeah, should I burn tonight? Answer is no. Probably not a good idea for you to do that because this region here is looking at those hot, dry, and windy conditions. And if for some reason that fire got out of control, it could easily spread very quickly. We're also looking at a red flag warning for tomorrow for the Copper River Basin. You had a fire weather watch earlier today. Now that has been brought up one notch to a red flag warning for the Copper River Basin. Again, that'll go all day tomorrow. So again, tomorrow, not a great day to be burning out there in the Copper River Basin. Make sure you're obeying your local laws and any restrictions that you may have. I don't know what they are, but make sure you check if before you start burning. Any time of the year is always a good idea to check. And anytime you see a fire, report that immediately to 911 and help keep our Alaska safe. Now, in Tok, it was hot. So hot, we made a really, really huge image. This is from Katie out in Tok. Thank you, Katie, for sending this to us. We love your weather information. And anyone else that would like to share your pictures from your community or just your weather report, we love to see that stuff. And Katie is a regular. We love it. It was hot in Tok. In fact, so hot, Johnny Carson would say, how hot was it? I don't have a good joke for that. 86.1 degrees Fahrenheit there in Tok today. So maybe a good day to take a dunk in the river. I don't know. Yeah. Warm. If you've been checking the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit, you've probably seen this banner. We've been talking about it for a while, but I thought, maybe I should actually show the webpage. So here you go. This is the webpage you're familiar with, but now it's got this lovely little piece at the top that says important change regarding the AAWU web presence, and that is meaning it's going to change. The new website is right here, weather.gov/AAWU. Or AWU, as we like to say in the office. If you click that, that takes you to the new page, and sometimes it behaves a little bit differently. We're still working out some of the kinks, but the important thing to know is that on June 20, this is going to roll over to the new page, and you won't have this historical piece of website anymore. And so we're making sure that all the little bits and pieces of that work the way you want it to, and we have the tools that you want. And many of you have responded to us and sent us emails at this address here saying, hey, this didn't work or this doesn't show up right for my area. Make sure you're doing that because that's how we're debugging the system here because everybody's got their own special thing that they like to look at. So we want to make sure that it works for you no matter what part of Alaska you're in. Our Alaska Aviation Weather Unit does serve you and your needs. So make sure we know and hear you, and you can do that with an email or give us a ring if you like. But I'm happy to take those questions and concerns as well. Now, on to Alaska weather. Fire danger, of course. No question about it for the Middle Tanana Valley and the Copper River Basin tomorrow. But you can see that from the upper end and the lower end of the Yukon Valley that fire danger is high, if not extreme in some cases, up around the Kobuk and Noatak valleys there, Kotzebue Sound region, Seward Peninsula, and the YK Delta. Now, the other factor in this is many West Coast communities in the YK Delta tomorrow will have another round of showers or thunderstorms forming, especially here in Southwest, but we won't be surprised to see them around the Seward Peninsula as well. We won't be surprised to see them across the central Alaska range. So that's the spark. That's the spark we can't control. The spark we can control, of course, is your fire safety and whether or not you're burning. So make sure you're being extra careful with fire, given the fire danger for many communities in Alaska right now. Here's a look at the satellite picture, and the overall flow is from southeast to northwest. You can see the clouds moving up along the eastern Gulf Coast. Low pressure sitting here across the Gulf, and it's pulling that moisture northward. So we didn't see another 80-plus degree day in Hyder today, but still fairly mild. And across the eastern sections of Alaska, that heat that we saw yesterday moved northward. It sat right over Katie's house in Tok. Across the interior, some breaks in the cloud cover, and also across Norton Sound today, you can see some other waves of low pressure there spinning around the western coast, and high pressure tries to take command of the central Bering Sea, but just a little bit further west, another wave of low pressure there, and low clouds and stratus for the North Slope, areas of fog, and also a few areas of flurries or snow. Nothing too significant, of course, but it's still cold enough for it. Here's a look at the visible satellite picture now, and you can see that that overall flow is a little bit less intense when you look at it in this view. There are certainly more breaks visible in the visible satellite picture today. But one thing to focus on is the brighter white puffs of clouds you see here across the Seward Peninsula and the YK Delta. That is that convection. That is the shower and thunderstorm activity bubbling up. And we didn't see a great forcing of that across the interior by late afternoon today. That wasn't the case yesterday. And the day before, we had strong and showers and thunderstorms across Southwest. So it's really feeding on this large swath of heat across the interior. For Southeast, let's watch the loop one more time. You can see that swirl of moisture here really kind of diffuse as it backs up into the west. That frontal boundary, what's left of it, isn't very strong. A lot of it's pushed ashore as well, so that's continuing to move northward, slow down, and we're going to see pieces of that working its way northward over the next couple days. Out west, slightly disorganized low pressure there, and high pressure still trying to hold on to the central Bering Sea. Here's the chart with fronts attached. You can see low pressures at 991 millibars. If you look carefully here, you can also see another lobe of low pressure, not a whole lot of cloud cover attached to it there. Behind that, some areas of light rainfall across the Dixon Entrance and up the southern outer coast. Pockets of rain across Prince William Sound today, over the Barren Islands, across the western Alaska Range. Low pressures across the upper Kuskokwim Valley. 1,004 millibar low there. Most of that, again, attached to the heating of the day. And there's another trough of low pressure northward. Across Barrow, I had some reports of light snow or flurries today, areas of fog, with high pressure across the Bering at 1,016 millibars and low pressure out west. Nothing much to write home about there, 1,001 millibars. The winds will be changing direction as we go as waves of that work across the North Pacific in the coming 24 to 48 hours. The front out east moves northward a little bit more into British Columbia and the southern parts of the Yukon. Areas of light rain may be possible across southeast. It will not be wall-to-wall wet weather, as you know. Low pressure across the central and eastern Gulf, expected to bring some pockets of rainfall across the northern Gulf. And then when we look out to the west, a better chance for the convective weather, the bubbling clouds, the showers, and maybe a storm or two. Areas of fog there across the middle Yukon Valley. Places like Galena, again, still looking for fog to push through the region from time to time. And then on the south-facing slopes of the Brooks Range and up around Eagle and points northward, don't be surprised to run into passing showers, fog, and maybe some flurries. Freezing fog as well for the North Slope and out west. Our low-pressure system's down to 999 millibars. But that doesn't last long. It fills into 1,010 millibars by Friday. Low pressure organizes a little bit more south of Sand Point at 993 millibars. This is gradually tracking eastward, but notice it's running into a ridge of high pressure here across the southern Gulf, so not too fast. High pressure is moving into the eastern outer coast of southeastern Alaska, let's say the eastern coast of the Gulf or the outer coast of southeast would be a better way to say that. It is a little bit stronger, so we're still getting the leftover rainfall from that front that moved into the Yukon and the northern sections of British Columbia and trapping some of that moisture likely up against some of the mountains. So don't be surprised if you start to see a little bit of fog developing in the morning with that. Low pressure across Northway and Eagle with a thermal trough, that area of hot weather here, making for low pressure all the way down the Yukon and the Kuskokwim. Around that, we expect to see showers and thunderstorms forming on Friday. It looks like Prince William Sound may get a little bit of a break. There may be some showers across the Kenai Mountains and maybe into Cook Inlet, but most areas around Anchorage, the Susitna, and the Parks Highway system should be fairly dry. Up north, areas of fog and some flurries there from the North Slope. And once again, those showers and thunderstorms could pop up around the Seward Peninsula and the Kotzebue Sound region as well. So a lot of forcing with this, a lot of heat trapped in here, and therefore a lot of instability all wrapped up into this weather system. Here's Saturday. The focus for showers and thunderstorms will likely move eastward along the eastern Alaska Range. Southeast may hold on to the clouds. You'll probably lose a greater risk for rainfall. Some of that will linger around the Haines and Skagway region, Gustavus, and northward toward Yakutat. A slightly better chance for some wetter weather around the Kenai Peninsula, including Cook Inlet region and Prince William Sound. Low pressure sitting south of Kodiak will ensure that Kodiak probably gets a taste of the wet weather again. And showers around Bristol Bay and around the central and eastern Aleutians. The upper Kuskokwim Valley is likely due for more showers here on Saturday, as well as the south-facing slopes of the southwestern Brooks Range, all the way up to Kobuk and Noatak valleys in the Chukchi Coast, as well as places in Kotzebue Sound. Trough of low pressure will snake its way up through the Bering Strait, and that should keep high pressure up across the North Slope. So areas of fog and freezing fog still a possibility as you start your weekend there. Temperatures today were back in the 50s and 60s. There's Hyder, 66, down almost 20-something degrees from yesterday. 40s and 50s around the Dixon entrance, 59 for Sitka, 70s and 80s as you get up toward the capital city. Haines and Skagway, it was over 80 degrees at lunchtime, I believe, in Skagway today. So if it was cruise day, people were getting off the boat and probably wondering, is this really Alaska? It's a little warm. 60s and 70s around Prince William Sound, 64 for Valdez, 70 in Cordova, 63 in Anchorage. It was 55 in Homer this afternoon. 66 around Talkeetna, 82 degrees in Fairbanks. Also, I believe the first day this season, it's made it up above 80 degrees in Fairbanks. So welcome to summer, everybody, in the Middle Tanana Valley. 78 in Eagle. It was 81 in Tokes, 70 for Fort Yukon. And then you get over the Brooks Range, and it's still winter. 30s and 40s there around Coldfoot and up toward Barrow. Temperatures were on the cool side. It was below freezing at 3 o'clock in Barrow. 33 in Kaktovik. 40s as you head down the coast toward Point Hope and Point Lay. 40s and 50s for Kotzebue Sound. Kotzebue itself was 57. 74 in Nome, though. And 60s and 70s around Norton Sound. 71 in Galena, again with areas of smoke today. 61 in Bethel. Lake Iliamna in the lower 60s. 40s and 50s for the Alaska Peninsula. Sandpoint had 57. Kodiak was 53. And the Aleutians and St. Paul and St. George all in the 40s. Dutch Harbor and Unalaska just shy of 50. Overnight lows there will dip into the mid-40s, about 40 degrees for St. Paul. St. Lawrence Island 36, 26 in Barrow. Mid to upper 50s for Fairbanks in the Middle Tanana Valley. You'll hold on to your heat. South Central cools off a little bit into the 40s and 50s there. Southeast lower to mid 50s overnight, and high temperatures tomorrow back in the 50s to 60 degree range, thanks to, again, clouds and some wetter weather. Prince William Sound, you're looking at 60s tomorrow, lower 70s for Cook Inlet. As you get into the Middle Tanana Valley, eastward toward Tok and Eagle, mid 80s are possible. It's also possible that some locations might tap into that 90 degree range before we're done with the weekend. So certainly a hotter weather pattern coming for you in the next 24 to 48 hours. 30s on the North Slope, looks like Prudhoe Bay and Dead Horse just above freezing tomorrow. 42 around Shishmaref, 64 in Nome, mid 60s for Unalakleet. Bethel and McGrath also looking at temperatures pretty close to 70 tomorrow. Bristol Bay 50s and 60s for you, and 40s and 50s for the Alaska Peninsula, the Pribilofs, and the Chain, 57 in Kodiak. Flying weather shows IFR conditions for the North Slope and eastward down the Beaufort Seacoast. Look for IFR conditions from St. Matthew to the Pribilofs, Dutch Harbor in Alaska, and westward toward Adak and Atka. By the afternoon, MVFR conditions will be a little more widespread for southeast. Parts of Prince William Sound, a few showers and thunderstorms may pop up across the interior and the west into Kotzebue Sound. Will be pushing it. IFR conditions for the northern coast of the Seward Peninsula and the southern part of Kotzebue Sound, and also just grazing the eastern Beaufort Seacoast. Past conditions look like this. Anaktuvik Pass, we expect to see MVFR setting in through the afternoon. Expect similar conditions in Adigan. Most of this will move in from the west. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass may develop lower ceilings with showers or thunderstorms forming in the region. Same goes for Rainy Pass there. We'll start at VFR for your Friday. Windy Pass, a slightly better chance for showers and storms there. VFR is expected. Isabel Pass also expecting VFR through most of the day, but watch out for showers and storms to form. Antasta Pass, we expect to see VFR in the afternoon, and Tanita Pass, we expect to see visual flight rule really all day long, but clouds will build up and some of those could turn into showers and storms. Portage Pass, we expect to see MVFR mainly over the Prince William Sound area, probably mostly over the water. The pass itself looks pretty good through most of the day. And Chilkoot and White Pass, we expect to see VFR mainly in the morning with MVFR developing in the afternoon. Freezing levels show that pocket of really warm air across the central and eastern interior. In fact, freezing levels are well above 12,000 feet here for parts of the Copper River Basin. That combined with hot, dry, windy conditions at the surface, helping to make for a good setup for fire weather danger there, or at least that enhanced risk. There is cold air aloft, and some of that is found as close as the Dixon entrance with levels there as low as 4,000 feet. You can see levels also lower out across the Bering Sea between 6,000 and 8,000 feet. Here's a look at icing potential now. Light to isolated moderates possible across south and west, mainly above 9,000 feet. So a lot of this is pretty high level stuff. Also across the southern Bering Sea above 9,000 feet, most of that will be light, and some pockets to that out across the central and southern parts of the Gulf. Bristol Bay will be included in this though, so make sure you check the charts before you get up and go in the morning there. And as always, watch out for convection to develop. The jet stream shows that fast moving river of air is still across the North Pacific. Levels are around 70 to 100 knots or so across the northern Pacific, and then taking a dive into the Pacific Northwest and speeding up to about 150 knots. But if you look over Alaska, we have a ridge of high pressure in place. That's what's guiding a lot of that heat and a lot of that moisture up the west coast, and also locking in the heat for the central and eastern interior, and what locked in the heat yesterday for parts of southeast. At 9,000 feet, you can see our ridge here is firmly entrenched across the Wrangell-St. Elias region, a broad south and easterly flow coming off the Gulf and moving up the west coast. We have light easterly winds across the north slope. Those are around 20 knots at best, and north and easterly flow coming off of southeast, 20 to 35 knots. At 3,000 feet, high pressure is pretty much in the same place here. We've got a ridge that's working into the central and eastern Gulf, 10 to 20 knots there. Southerly winds coming in off the western Gulf, 15 to 20 knots. And up north, we've got lighter north and easterly winds, 20 knots coming ashore, and then they slow down a little bit more across the coastal areas. For the Brooks Range, though, they're a little bit faster, so don't be surprised to run into some chop there. And so we've painted in a little bit of turbulence below 4,000 feet. Also watch for some chop south and west of Sand Point, below 4,000 feet, and maybe as far west as Unalaska and Dutch Harbor, and watch out for convection in the afternoon. That's a look at your aviation forecast. We'll be back with your ice edge and marine weather here in just a few minutes.
Star Day 2017. Welcome to Stargazers. I'm Dean Regas, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. It's that time of year again where we encourage stargazers everywhere to celebrate Day Star Day.
That's right, James. Just get up before dawn and experience a great star rise over our Earth's horizon. A star so huge we could fit over 1.25 million Earths inside it.
What are we talking about? Let's show you.
It sounds simple enough, but few people ever pay close enough attention to the rising of the only star we can see in the daytime to ever really experience it. We call this star the sun, but on Stargazers we occasionally refer to it as our day star.
3 years ago, the summer solstice occurred on the weekend, making our Day Star Day celebration easy to do. However, this year it occurs during the week. For those of us on the east coast of the United States, the summer solstice occurs at precisely 12:24 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on the morning of Wednesday, June 21st.
Therefore, it might be a challenge to fully participate in our day star sunrise experience on the actual day of the summer solstice. So we suggest experiencing the sunrise the weekend before the summer solstice on Saturday, June 17th or Sunday, June 18th.
Now, I'll bet that some of you are thinking that we're talking about a sunrise and that you've seen thousands of them. But even though you may think that you've seen thousands of sunrises, very few people have ever taken the time to completely experience what's happening all around them as the sun rises.
Sunrise involves a complex series of steps as night slowly turns into dawn and then finally into day. If you follow our simple instructions, you'll experience one of the grandest events in nature, which most people ignore.
To participate, here's all you have to do. Simply get up on the day you've chosen while it's still dark out, about 15 minutes before twilight begins. Whether you live in the heart of a city or out in the country, it makes no difference because it's not the sun itself you're going to observe, but the effects of sunrise on everything around you, as your part of the world slowly turns from night into day.
It's better to be outside, but if you can't go outside, just sit by an open window. Now for the rules, which are absolutely essential. No internet, no phones, no doing your normal wake-up routine. All distractions must be eliminated.
Simply sit quietly, inside or outside, and when you see the skies slowly start to brighten, look, listen, and feel what happens all around you. A sunrise is more than visual. Watch the delicate interplay of light, color, and shadow.
But also listen, and you'll hear the sounds of our world and its creatures waking up. You'll feel the wind change, the temperature change, and much, much more.
If you do get outside before dawn on Wednesday, June 21st, you're in for a treat. The waning crescent moon and Venus will be in conjunction, and they'll be 7 degrees or 14 moon widths apart, rising in the east.
The waning crescent moon will also be showing some earthshine. Earthshine happens when sunlight reflecting off the earth gently lights up the nighttime side of the moon. This allows you to see the man in the moon pattern in the dark portion of the moon.
So, as you experience Day Star Day, keep track of all the subtle changes you notice and record your observations on paper or into a voice recorder. Then read or listen to your observations a few days later. Believe me, if you've never done this before, you'll be absolutely amazed at what a star rise over a small planet can do for you.
Of course, remember to never look directly at the sun at any time. Only observe the effects of the sunrise on the world around you. You'll gain a whole different perspective of your place on this planet and our planet's place in the universe.
Happy Day Star Day, my friends, and keep looking up.
Not too many changes on the sea ice edge from what we were talking about yesterday. You can see a piece, or a region anyway, of lower concentration ice has kind of moved off the west coast with the current winds moving through a little bit on the stronger side. In fact, we're expecting gales across the Chukchi Sea tomorrow. But you will notice more changes along the west coast in the coming days as the winds strengthen. We'll probably see more of this ice on the move. And we're still watching that lower concentration beginning to move just east of Barrow. So watch for changes if you're along the coast inside of Kotzebue Sound. Most of the Bering Sea is like this close from being sea ice free at this point. Here's a look at southeast and south and easterly winds moving through the inner channels, 10 to 15 knots in most areas until you get to the Lynn Canal. As usual, a little bit stronger there with a south wind, 25 knots and 4-foot seas, anywhere from 5 to 6-foot seas across the outer coast. Looking at generally a southerly flow at about 15 knots on Friday and a little bit more of an onshore flow, but still pretty light on Saturday. The northwesterlies inside of the Clarence Strait region, 15 knots and 3-foot seas there. We'll still keep our southerly wind across the Lynn Canal, 20 knots there, but seas diminish to about 3 feet on Saturday. Now for south central, light southeasterly winds are expected inside tomorrow, 15 knots and 2-foot seas there, northwesterlies on the outside. The southwesterly flow will come up the western Gulf Coast, 15 knots with 4-foot seas, light and variable winds inside of Shelikof Strait, and a light southerly breeze moving up through Cook Inlet, expecting 2-foot seas from Homer on northward toward Anchorage. As you get into Saturday, light easterlies are expected inside of Prince William Sound, small seas as well. 4 to 5-foot seas for most of the western Gulf. East of Kodiak Island, they could be as high as 7 on that 20-knot wind. Easterlies across regions over the Barren Islands, up to 6-foot seas there, and inside of Shelikof Strait. We'll keep light winds inside of Cook Inlet. The direction is going to change a little bit more to a south and westerly flow the further north you go. 2-foot seas expected on Saturday. For Bristol Bay, look for southwesterlies, light 10 knots with a 2-foot sea, northeasterlies down the Bering Sea coast, 15 knots and 4-foot seas, light and variable winds west of Kodiak Island. There'll be a slightly stronger easterly wind south of Sand Point all the way out toward King Cove and False Pass, 7-foot seas there on a 30-knot wind. That reverses course to more of a westerly flow on Saturday with 7-foot seas. 25-knot winds from Castle Cape to Chignik with 8-foot seas there. Winds pick up a little bit more inside of Bristol Bay from the east. 15 knots and 3-foot seas there. A northwesterly wind coming in down the Bering Sea coast. And what does this tell you? Low pressure sitting right about here as we get into Saturday. Here is Friday, and you'll notice light and variable winds around Nikolsky, northeasterly winds from Unalaska to Nikolsky, northerly winds a little bit stronger. On the Pacific coast side, you'll see 20 to 30 knot winds all the way down the coast, 5 to 6 foot seas there. Southwesterlies west of Adak, 15 knots and a 4-foot sea, and easterlies from Kiska to Attu, 20 knots with 5-foot seas there on Friday. That becomes westerlies we get into Saturday, northwesterlies west of Adak, and then your broad and westerly and southwesterly wind shapes up 20 to 25 knots in the central and eastern chain, 3 to 6-foot seas across the Bering Sea coast, and you're looking at 6 to 9-foot seas across the Pacific coast for the beginning of your weekend. For Friday and across the west coast and St. Lawrence Island, northerlies there coming out of the Bering Strait, 25 knots and 5-foot seas. Westerlies for the Kuskokwim Delta, 4-foot seas expected there and around St. Paul and St. George, but with a little bit more of a light and variable wind. Northerlies around the St. Matthew Island waters and 4-foot seas there for Friday. That becomes 20 knots and 5-foot seas with northeasterly winds kicking in for Saturday. And southeasterly winds try and make their way up the west coast and the YK Delta, 15 knots. To as low as 10 knots outside of the Kuskokwim with 3 to 4-foot seas northwesterlies for the Pribilofs on Saturday. Across the North Slope, this is where we find our strongest winds. Gales are expected. Again, this is all over open water now. 9-foot seas expected, very low concentration ice, I should say, out across some of the more open areas, and still looking at some coastal ice, but most areas are really opening up. 20 knots from the north and east across the Kotzebue Sound region with 6-foot seas, and east and northeasterlies for the Beaufort Seacoast, 25 to 30 there for Friday. We'll see a little improvement perhaps across some of the North Slope on Saturday. You're looking at 25 to 30 knots across the Beaufort Seacoast, but we're going to hold on to our gales for the Chukchi Coast and 10 to 12-foot seas, again with ice in the region. It's not such a nice day to be out on the water, so do be careful if you are planning to head out, or maybe just call it another day. Easterlies outside of Kotzebue Sound, 20 knots with a 6-foot sea are expected for your Saturday. Let's recap the weather around Alaska. Showers and thunderstorms possible for the west and southwestern portions of our state tonight, along with smoke around places like Galena, thanks to wildfires in the region. Areas of light rain expected across southeast tonight, and maybe some showers across the south-facing slopes of the Brooks Range. More of that tomorrow, and a better chance for showers and storms in the west and the middle interior. Expect another hot one in Fairbanks, and showers and storms possible out east. Thanks for watching.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.